best revision method for lazy students. Crosswords.
I like this just because it seems fun. I want to do one. I hate when people say the best way to do something. Oh, don't tell me this is the... Oh. Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin here again, and this is part 3 of me reacting to TikTok study advice. If you're new to this channel, I am a learning coach, learning researcher, certified teacher, and the head of learning at I Can Study, and a former medical doctor. Over the last decade, I've helped tens of thousands of learners across the world learn more efficiently. So here's my take on this advice, and this part 3 I think has probably the most high value, like generally good advice compared to the first 2 parts. So hope you enjoy.
Here's the study method that I use in medical school to learn everything. This 4-step method will help you master any material no matter what subject you're learning or what level you're at. Step 1, I watch the lecture on 1.5 to 2x speed and take notes. My goal of the first pass is simply to understand the material rather than memorize every single fact. Pause and rewind the lecture as needed. Just try to get a basic overview of the information.
Hey, here's a hack that I'm gonna tell you about that just takes that to another level. What they've said so far, that actually sounds good, right? Like the focus is being on the superficial, general, broad base. Here's 2 more things that you can add. If you've got multiple lectures that are talking about essentially the same concept and the same topic, do all of them at once if you can, because you'll find more relationships between them than if you were to just do a single lecture. Sometimes there's something that you look at and you're like, it takes you 15 minutes to just get your head around that, but then actually 3 lectures later, if you had known that information, it would have made this so much easier to understand. Learning like broadly and superficially at the beginning is always better than going narrow and deep. Anyway, the tip here, download the lecture if you can, put it into an AI to transcribe it into words, and then just read it. It's faster than doing 1.5 or double speed.
The lecture is needed. Just try to get a basic overview of the information. Use the free Google Chrome extension Video Speed Controller to watch lectures faster. Step 2, I review the PowerPoint lecture and the notes that I took, and I use them to make flashcards on a free app called
it was good while it lasted.
Question format because teaching yourself the material is one of the best ways to learn. Rather than saying, what is the mitochondria? I say, what specific function of the mitochondria is conducive to life?
Okay, so all right, like there was a redemption here. I was like, oh, we just immediately dropped into isolated, lower order, non-integrated, space retrieval methods. But actually, the spin that he took on it is much, much better. And this is a way that most people aren't really using flashcards. So what he's done is that he's created integration. He's created connection and relationships between the information. So it's not just isolated fact recall. It requires more what we call elaboration. And that's going to be a lot better for your learning than just a simple isolated one. So well done, whatever your name was, something Nosh, right? Nereus Nosh. I think I said that name wrong. But the other thing is that you should sort of refresh your flashcard questions every now and again if you're going to use this technique. And again, I still think that going straight to flashcards is probably premature because you're going to have so many and like you're going to spend all of your time doing that. But if you are really going to do that, then make sure you've refreshed the questions. The issue is that you can get into like a pattern of cued recall only. And what that means is that you can have a certain question, you memorize the answer to that single question, and you're no longer actually testing on the relationships anymore. So like a great way that you know if this has happened is that you read a question like this, and at the first point you read that question, you might think about it and be like, I wonder what it is, and try to answer it. And the second time you're like, wait, what were the relationships that I thought of there? And then you answer it again. But maybe like the 4th time that you answer it, you're just reading this, what specific function of the mito, and then you already remember what it is and you can answer it straight away. And what that indicates is that it's now a pattern recognition thing. You're no longer thinking about or testing yourself on the relationships. So rather than doing the same thing, it's better to change the question. So modify that question now or add a new flashcard and get rid of this one and swap it out. So instead of what specific function of the mitochondria is conducive to life, you could say, if the mitochondria did not have this specific function, how might the cell be disadvantaged? So you can see it's like a similar kind of question, but it's actually testing you in a different way. So you should be always mindful of when you're entering into just that pure like trigger response pattern recognition, because that's not really testing on higher order structures anymore.
Boom, creating energy. Step 3, I review the flashcard.
Okay, well, I mean, that was it's an emotional roller coaster, this one. Boom, creating energy. So that's like the worst way to answer this question. This is something that I call importance checklisting, which is when you have a question that makes you do integrated thinking, but instead of doing the integrated thinking, you answer it in a way that causes you to have a single isolated lower order response. This is a great question to prompt you for more elaborative thinking. And it is more time consuming, which is the reason why having high volume flashcards with high frequency repetition is not mathematically scalable or sustainable if you're learning lots of stuff. But if you did have a question like this, boom creating energy is not a great way to answer it. You should elaborate a little bit more. But anyway, boom creating energy.
Step 3, I review the flashcards that I made. This is probably my favorite step because it takes the least amount of time and it really drills in the information. Step 4.
Measuring the effectiveness of a strategy based on how long it takes is not a great way. You should be measuring the effectiveness based on the type of knowledge it helps you create or retrieve, and then the amount of time it takes to achieve that. It can, if something takes you a very short amount of time, but it doesn't provide a great benefit, then it's not going to be very effective. When this guy says review your flashcards, I'm sure he's doing something in his head that makes it more effective. And that is probably the secret sauce behind this, which is the reason why he's able to use these techniques with success, is what's happening cognitively.
I ask a classmate to do an active learning session with me in which we ask each other practice questions. This allows me to understand the information from their perspective as well, and it allows me to fill in any gaps that I might have missed. You can't miss this one because it's definitely one of the best steps for drilling in the
but that's really good. The last one is really, really good. You know, it's got that social learning element. It is exposing you to more perspective, so that's a really good step. The only downside is that you need friends.
This study method has significantly decreased my study time and made me way more efficient. Try it out and let me know what you think. Follow me, drop a like, and send this video to a friend who studies a lot.
Here is a revision technique that I use to get all A stars at GCSE and A-level. Learning 2 years worth of content can almost feel impossible, so it's really important that you have an effective technique to condense the course down. I did this using summary pages, where I'd make a single A4 page for a topic like the alkanes, and would force myself to find a way to break everything down so the whole course material fit onto that one page. I have loads more revision techniques, so we'll make more videos, so follow that.
Cool. So I think the main thing with this is, like, as I've said, you know, summary pages work because it forces that prioritization, evaluation of information. If you use non-linear methods of summarization, you're going to find that it's more challenging, but much more effective as well. So, you know, that's the additional thing that I add to that. But I think I've already talked about summary pages a lot through this like set of videos.
The best revision method for lazy students, crosswords. They're so underrated, but they got me through GCSEs, A-levels, and med school. They're a chill form of revision that let you study entire courses in days. Here are some examples, and you can download the rest from the link in my bio.
You know what? I don't know if I'm out of touch, but I've never seen crossword studying like this type of thing. I have a lot of opinions about the fact that it's still, you know, it's essentially just the same thing as flashcards, right? And so there's limitations with isolated information and recall, and it's not really testing your conceptual difficulty and networks or integrated thought, so you're not really going to get any of the benefits of deep processing really, unless of course you're already a deep processor. But if you get curveball questions or higher level questions, you're kind of screwed if you only rely on this technique and you don't have good deep processing. Okay, that's the spiel done. But this is just cool. I like this just because it seems fun. I want to do one. This is cool. I've never seen this before. Maybe I'm out of touch now. Oh, don't tell me this is the... Oh, I hate this. Man, where do I even start? So from a research perspective, there is research that says that, you know, something like the Doodling method can work because of the fact that there is actually like a, you know, I can't remember what you might call it, like a neuronal arc, I imagine. But there is something with, you know, active literally just moving your hands and just doing things and reading that allows you to have better comprehension of the information. The main issue with this is that it is extremely deep processing dependent, which means that if you don't have really high and good levels of deep processing to begin with, you will really struggle to improve by any like real meaningful amount by using this method. So again, if you're struggling, like you're actually struggling, or you're just, you know, you're average and you just want to be like in that higher tier, this is not really the thing that's going to change things very much. But if you're like kind of doing well and you just want to like increase the engagement when you're specifically reading something, then this method can help you a little bit. There's probably something like a, you know, 5 to 10% benefit in terms of focus and comprehension at the point of reading. But the word comprehension is like, it's complicated. Like, how do you even measure comprehension? It's not just, you know, it's not just that you remembered something. It's about how you can then use that information and in how many different ways. This is not really going to help you with that. Well, looking forward to that.
This is the best way to learn anything in just 3 steps. First is you choose your topic and start studying.
I hate when people say the best way to do something, you know?
Or an imagination.
It's like, how do you know that?
Although teaching it to people is a lot
Like, where do you get that confidence from?
better. This exercise leads you step 3 where you will discover the gaps in your knowledge, and basically the aim of this whole technique is to help you identify your weaknesses in a topic and work on them harder and turn them into a strength.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, it's the Feynman method. Is it Feynman? No, I'm sure it's Feynman. Anyway, the Feynman method is a good method. I think it's probably for like a beginner that's just trying to get into effective learning strategies. It's like one of the best techniques that you can use to just start getting in there. There's a lot of great generative effects. There's a lot of great active recall, active learning, retrieval benefits from it. It's forcing some higher order integrated information. There is a little bit of nuance there that it still really depends on your ability to do the deep processing. So even though it encourages it, the Feynman method doesn't have a lot of detailed instruction on how to do it, especially the teaching step, because the way you teach something also changes the way you think about it. So there are methods of teaching that force you to evaluate it to a deeper level. And so it's a lot more effective. Whereas if you were to teach something, but the way you're teaching it is very just like, you know, almost like reading off PowerPoint style, just like very linear, like here are the facts. That's not very effective because then you're only testing yourself at the lower orders. So, you know, there's a lot of variation there. But for a beginner technique, Feynman method is great to start with. You know, if I'm working with someone that's got some experience with this, I know that there's going to be a foundation that's a lot easier to work with.
Here are the 3 things I did to get a 99.9 ATAR.
Oh, you missed 0.05.
Ask your teachers for extra material like challenging practice exam questions.
Just kidding,
and every
by the way.
weekend, revise what you learned that week using summary sheets or application questions so that you're not cramming for the end of the year.
Okay, pretty simple points there. Don't do all the homework necessarily though. I think she probably benefited from going to a school that gave more meaningful homework, but there are honestly a lot of, and like, look, I don't mean this in a way that's like insulting to teachers or anything, and sometimes it's just how things are, but sometimes the homework is just not very useful. You know, there are really great guidelines that are, especially not evidence-based ones, on how to set homework that is meaningful, that produces good learning. A lot of it is just kind of like the teacher has an idea about something and just gives it a go. But actually, a lot of homework is not going to help you. If you are not studying, okay, if you're not studying in your personal time, do your homework. It's going to help you. But if it's taking time away from something else that you want to be doing that is more productive for your studying, you've got another method that you want to use, then it depends on the method and depends on the homework. But usually I find that homework then is kind of a distractor more so. And I wish we had an education system that made it easier for teachers to just like let students do a little bit more of their own thing and take a little bit more control of their ownership over their learning rather than like prescribing homework. But at the same time, as someone that works with thousands of students, like I know how hard it is to do that. And I can't imagine trying to do that in like a school setting, unless you're in like a private school where there's a lot more resources and a lot more support. But a lot of time homework is not really going to help you. And actually one of the best things that you can do for yourself is learn a more effective method of self-study and just do your homework as fast as you can, just so that the teacher like checks the box or something. Or negotiate with your teacher if they seem like an open-minded person. Be like, hey, I really want to self-study using this method. I think it's going to be really effective for me. Is it okay if for just like the next couple of weeks, I try using this method and then I talk to you about how I'm finding it because I feel like it might be more useful for me than doing the homework? Or, you know, if they seem like an open-minded person, maybe try to give that a go. But, you know, that's going to be up to you, right? I don't take any responsibility for, you know, you getting in trouble with your teacher if they're like a super, super conservative, like, you know, like, how dare you defy me kind of personality. Yeah, the next thing, asking for more challenging material. This is actually good. Like I think every student should always hold themselves to a higher standard in general. It just pushes you forward a little bit more, and learning outside the scope is better for your learning overall anyway. And revising on a regular basis, this is good advice too. So overall, I think there's just maybe a little bit of nuance that this person is missing based on the fact that she probably doesn't have experience working with lots of schools and students of diverse backgrounds. But given that it's just coming from her experience, and she did say like this is how she did it, I think it's, yeah, like good advice.
Revising for anything can be incredibly stressful. So here's my top tips to make revision that little bit easier and to alleviate some of those stresses.
So when I was revising, I would always get my things from Ryman, so definitely go and check those out for all of your revision needs. My first tip is to get yourself a timetable so you can map out when you're going to do revision, when you're going to take rest days, because that's really important, when you're going to do mock exams, all of those things.
That's good.
My second tip is to get a clock that sits on the
cool
table.
clock.
It's not your phone, so you don't get distracted. To help you keep track of all of your revision time.
Figure out where he bought the stuff from again. Wait, sorry, I missed what he said.
Next tip, get yourself an exercise book, one that you can divide into sections. Is so useful just for all of your revision notes. But whilst you're revising, make it colourful, make it
so again, this is only if you're using a linear note-taking style, but once you start getting into higher order learning and that becomes the method through which you think, like once you start understanding the value of integrated thinking, you will find that A4 size paper is just so restrictive and it's hard to use. So again, I always say, and I understand not everyone can afford it, but if you can, try to save up to get yourself a tablet. Even if it's like the cheapest possible, like Android tablet out there with a tablet with a pen stylus, infinite canvas is a game changer for learning if you are using integrative thinking and non-linear note-taking, which really is just vastly superior.
So useful just for all of your revision notes. But whilst you're revising, make it colourful, make it stand out. It's going to help you remember it.
I mean, the research on that it doesn't really work quite that way, but it's quite a complicated topic.
Finally, revision cards, post-it notes, stick them everywhere, short, sharp notes to help you remember.
That doesn't really help though. The final thing, that's not really going to be very effective for most people. Unless you've got a very few number of things that you're trying to remind yourself for, or if the information is very, very simple. But if you, it's quite a niche situation where you'd need that. If you do really have detailed, isolated, fact-related information that you're trying to remember, you should really be using a digital flashcard app for that type of information like Anki. I actually used to do that though. I actually used to have stuff like just on my mirror, so like when I'm brushing my teeth and I can remember it. And all I remember is I had the notes up. I don't remember anything that was on them.
When it comes to revising properly, this is something I'm so passionate about. So I don't care what TikTok,
Again, I hate the best title here. It's like, how do you know that? Why are you so confident about that?
What YouTube video, what genius that has told you this is the perfect method to revise and smash your exam. Genuinely, there is no perfect method.
Oh, that's oh wait, so she's responding to someone that is asking what is the best technique? Oh, right, I get it, sorry. My bad, Christina.
When it comes to revising properly, this is something I'm so passionate about. So I don't care what TikTok, what YouTube video, what genius that has told you this is the perfect method to revise and smash your exam. Genuinely, there is no perfect method. One of the best methods is genuinely to use all the methods. As in, do some flashcards, make a few posters, do some past papers, do blurting on a whiteboard and fill in the bits that you don't know. Use everything because all methods have flaws. Past papers are great, but they're not going to cover every single topic ever. Flashcards are great, but they do get boring after a while. And posters are great, but it does take forever to make a poster on the topic. Each revision technique has their strengths and weaknesses, so if you can use all of them, you're going to be covering all bases.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I don't have a lot to say about that. I would say don't use all revision methods. I know, especially in some countries, there are revision methods that are straight up will not work. Especially in Asia, there are some very desperate students trying to do stuff. And so I wouldn't say do everything. I would say think about the cost and benefit of the technique. If you know the cost and benefit of a technique, then you should be able to mix and match them and then bring them together into your system and make a decision about that, right? But I would say think about it and then use it. And I think that's something that was implicit in what she was saying. I'm sure she's not saying do all the real crazy things, but the essence of the message is there, and I agree with it. And so that's great advice. Good advice, Christina. And that's it. That's it. We are at the end of all the videos. If there are specific things that you want me to review, let me know. But otherwise, thanks for watching. If there's things that you want me to go into a little bit more depth, let me know in the comments and I'll try to make a bigger video explaining some of that a little bit more. If you like these kind of reaction videos, let me know as well. But thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.